Hassan, good to have you on the program. Appreciate your time. So we're just getting news now about this briefing that William Ruto is going to be having in the next 20 minutes or so. Reports he hasn't signed this bill. What do you make of that?
I think this is an attempt to also move in the direction of compromise as a way of sending a conciliatory message, especially to protesters, especially in the wake of what was perceived to be brinkmanship in the better part of the last couple of days. And what we expect is going perhaps to make some remarks to demonstrate that he's considering some of the provisions in the bill and that Parliament should perhaps act on them in a way that can ameliorate some of the challenges that the country is facing today as a result of increased opposition coming from the young people called Gen Z against the finance bill.
Why have we come to this point? Why has it taken so long? Because it was from last week already that people came out onto the streets angry about this. Young people, as you say, many under the age of 25. And we've seen people now losing their lives because of this. And it seems to have forced his hand here. What sort of compromise are we expecting him to make?
I think the compromise is number one, to the extent that he's returning to Parliament, of course, that's a compromise in itself. And so some of the contentious clauses have already been removed, and to be fair. But some others, perhaps, that could be holding the bill in terms of people's perception are going probably to be negotiated, in the coming days to be able to, change in a language that perhaps is going to appease not just protesters, but also activists who've been against this bill. But also what we, I think, expect to see is perhaps a different language to reach out that's going to be more inclusive. Because remember, this is unlike any other project we've seen in recent history, is mainly driven by not exactly structured group. It's a group that does not exactly have definable leadership that you can negotiate with. And so the language that is going to move towards de-escalation, because considering what the group was planning for tomorrow, of course, if it's allowed to proceed, or if there's a language in which that may fan the flames, then things may get out of hand pretty quickly. And so I think the president is going to be very keen to communicate to the nation, as well as those who are protesting, that the government is willing to dialogue, but also that he has listened to Kenyans and is going to make the necessary changes to be able to accommodate, especially the protesters, mostly made up of Generation Z.
How does this affect William Ruto's popularity in the country? We heard from some of those protesters, one woman saying she's angry now that she voted for him in the first place, now that he's doing this. She, as a young person, is already facing so many challenges in Kenya, including that cost of living. Youth unemployment is also very high. And are we possibly going to see this wave of people turning on William Ruto, especially those who put him in power in the first place?
The election is still, 3 years away, so we don't know exactly how the current sentiment, how long it's going to last. But of course, he came to power, of course, riding on the dissatisfaction, especially with the economy. And among the people who are the biggest supporters, of course, are also the youth. Now, if the government is able, or his government is able to turn the economy around, then perhaps this won't be an issue come 2027. But of course, if there's going to be a failure in delivery by 2027, I think the stage will be set for a protest vote, of course, against his government.
What other options does William Ruto's government have in order to raise this money that is needed to pay that IMF bill? They've said, look, we have to raise taxes. It's the only way. But there are some economists who disagree with that. What are the options on the table?
There are not too many options. Of course, the most practical option is trying to grow the economy as well as expand the tax base. Now, to grow an economy, of course, you're going to need to undertake a number of, a series of measures, austerity measures, of course, included, because you cannot be spending beyond your capacity to be able to pay for your expenditures, and that has been a huge thing. It's going also to involve, cutting on some of our discretionary spending by the government, including some of the social services. But I think fundamentally, it's going to be required to have a comprehensive framework across sectors, both from manufacturing, agriculture, as well as services and tourism, sectors to be able to start growing again, perhaps between 5 and 10%, for the country to be able to raise the kind of money that it's going to need. In the absence of that, there's just not too many avenues to be able to raise money that is required outside, of course, than just increasing taxes that sometimes and oftentimes is going, it can have a negative impact, both on growth as well as on social stability of the country.
Hassan Khannenje, thanks so much for breaking that down for us. Really appreciate your analysis live there from Nairobi.